Hey everyone, Psycho back again. I wanted to make a quick video about the talent options for Raid and Mythic Plus for Havoc. It's one of the most asked questions I've gotten on my stream recently, and obviously people have been curious. What talent should I play? In what scenario should I play this? It's a new expansion, I don't know what's going on. Are we really playing Momentum? So here, I wanted to give you a brief overview of every talent in the talent row, and in what scenario would you use it in. At the end of the day, these are talent choices. So if you prefer or enjoy playing different talents than I'm suggesting, please feel free to do so. I mainly wanted this overview to help properly prepare you for the upcoming raid in Castle Nathria and Mythic Plus season. Before we get into it, just a short disclaimer that these are currently the talents that I have found worked best for me throughout my extensive testing on the beta as well as the first few weeks on live. But with tuning, this could be subject to change, so always be prepared to swap it up. As always, please be sure to subscribe for future videos, and come by my Twitch channel linked in the description down below, and watch me compete in the upcoming Race to World First in Castle Nathria. For talents, this is going to be more of a standard raid build for Castle Nathria. It will be Fellblade Demon Blades paired with Glaive Tempest, Master of the Glaive, First Blood, and Momentum. The biggest contention talents here are typically ones that a lot of people don't enjoy playing, but right now they are currently, with current tuning, they are looking to be the best options in these rows. Demon Blades scales very well right now. Especially when paired with Fellblade. I'd suggest practicing and learning this playstyle. It is easy to pick up and easy to handle. And currently your best pure single target, and honestly even cleave talents. Glaive Tempest is, when paired with Momentum, incredibly strong. You want to make sure that you are pairing up your Glaive Tempest with a Momentum buff every single time, if possible. Glaive Tempest is close to Trail of Ruin on pure single target, if not about even. Considering you have to spend Fury and a Global for Glaive Tempest, whereas Trail of Ruin costs no Global and no Fury. But Trail of Ruin only beats out Glaive Tempest on pure single target when paired with Chaos Theory. But anytime there's Cleave and AoE, Glaive Tempest is going to beat it out 100% of the time, especially when paired with Momentum. I'm not really going to go over the level 35 and 45 talent rows too much, because these are more utility picks that are fight dependent. I typically tend to go with Netherwalk most of the time, just because even though it was nerfed, it's still a 3-minute immunity, which is strong. It can even be used for movement speed if you need it, but most of the time it's just used as an immunity. Soul Rending with the nerf to it, and especially when paired with Momentum, you don't gain too much value out of it, but it can be strong as well when a little bit of extra leech is needed. Desperate Instincts can be used, especially if there's a fight mechanic that you can blur like every minute. You want to increase your blur, it makes it stronger. But honestly, Netherwalk is typically my pick here, but you're going to need to take a look at the fight that you're doing, the mechanics on the fight, and choose based on that. So the level 40 talent row, on single target, First Blood is going to be your option. Essence Break is the new talent that was introduced in Shadowlands, but it's fairly lackluster. It is essentially a watered down version of Dark Slash. Dark Slash was an ability in BFA right on this slot in this talent row, and it's just as clunky to use. Essence Break is just as clunky to use as Dark Slash was. And this, on single target, Essence Break is closer to these two options than you think, but because it's so clunky to use and the numbers don't line up, it's just really never worth picking in any scenario. Cycle of Hatred is a talent that really removes Blade Dance from your rotation, which is not the most fun gameplay. Removing a rotational ability from Demon Hunter does not add anything meaningful to our gameplay. Because you're not talented into First Blood with Cycle of Hatred, your Blade Dance costs too much fury and does too little damage to be worth pressing. There are a few niche scenarios in which you would press Blade Dance while spec'd into Cycle of Hatred, but 9 times out of 10, it's just not worth pressing, and you just stick to pressing Chaos Strike or Demon's Bite. First Blood obviously keeps Blade Dance in your rotation. You press it on cooldown, and this is currently the best option for pure single target. Cycle of Hatred gains value in AoE and cleave when you get the Collective Anguish legendary, because you are eye beaming more often, and therefore you get more value out of the Fell Devastation damage. The level 45 talent row, again, more of a utility pick. In dungeons, you can take either Unleash Power or Fell Eruption. It could be dungeon dependent. It could be dependent on your play style, what other stops and stuns and kicks you have in your group. But most of the time in dungeons, I tend to lean towards Fell Eruption, mainly on personal preference. But Unleash Power is also very strong. You can even play Master of the Glaive on Spiteful weeks to slow the Spiteful Shades that are spawned. But in Raid, you're going to want to stick with Master of the Glaive most of the time, especially when you're playing Demon Blades. Because there are times where you will not get a Demon's Blade proc and not have enough Fury to either Chaos Strike or won't have a Fell Blade off cooldown. So in what we call these dead globals, you will just throw Glaive so that you are doing damage instead of wasting your globals. So here's the big one. The level 50 talent row is more of a playstyle or build depending talent choice. With the current tuning, Momentum is the best option in this talent row for Raid and Mythic Plus. Playing Demonic just flat out right now is not enough damage in 9 out of 10 scenarios. Typically you would play Demonic if it's close to Momentum, but right now with the current tunings, Momentum is enough ahead to where it's worth playing over Demonic. Now, with a caveat to that, there are some bosses in the raid where, because of how they're designed, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to play Momentum. But not all, only a couple. Those bosses would either be Sludge Fist, because of the movement restrictions on this fight, and possibly Hungering Destroyer. But Hungering Destroyer, you should be okay playing Momentum, but it might be a little bit difficult. But the only one I would definitely recommend not playing Momentum on is Sledge Fist. Fell Barrage honestly does not make sense on this talent row. I'm not sure why they... Honestly, I was glad that they removed Nemesis, but the fact that they put Fell Barrage here makes no sense whatsoever. You never pick this talent in any scenario. With the current tunings, even if there was a boss fight where 8 adds spawned every 1 minute, it still would not be worth it to play Fell Barrage. So this is essentially a dead talent. Your choice is either Momentum or Demonic, but I personally would recommend you to learn and start playing Momentum, as it is more of enough of a damage increase over Demonic to be worth it. If you are not comfortable playing Momentum, or you just flat out don't like the playstyle, that is completely fine, but I would recommend you would try it again, and maybe you'll start to like it again. Personally, I think Momentum is very fun. It adds depth to our gameplay. It adds decision making to our gameplay. Whereas with demonic, yeah, it's cool being a demon more, but it's not a playstyle or build defining talent. It's essentially just you become a demon every 30 seconds. Which again is cool, but momentum is much more fun in my personal opinion. So with this talent row, it's basically anything but Fel Barrage. I want to go back and add a caveat here as well to the level 30 talent row. I kind of glanced over Unbound Chaos. This ability was very strong in its first iteration in the Shadowlands beta, and it even went live on pre-patch BFA. But it was reworked to and nerfed to where it's never usable in any scenario. This is essentially, honestly, Havoc right now has 3 dead talent slots. Unbound Chaos is never good in any scenario over Glade Tempest or Trail of Ruin. Essence Break is never good in any scenario over First Blood or Cycle of Hatred. And Fel Barrage is never good in any scenario over Momentum or Demonic. So you're really kind of stuck into two choices in a couple of these talent rows. So basically, at the end of the day, this is going to be a standard raid build that you will see people playing. You will see people swap to Demonic for fights where it's difficult to play Momentum. You could even see some Cycle of Hatred play on AoE or Cleave, depending on if you have Collective Anguish or not. If you're playing Cycle of Hatred, I would not play Fellblade Demon Blades. I would pair that with Blind Fury and Insatiable Hunger. So again, for a more single target focused raid build, this is what I would play, and you will probably see me playing in Castle Nathria. For Mythic Plus, you have a lot of options. Typically my standard talent build in Mythic Plus from what I've been playing is something like this, but in more AoE heavy dungeons, or where I feel like I need more AoE, I would change to Blind Fury and Insatiable Hunger. But I typically would keep Fellblade Demon Blade because I personally, in Shadowlands dungeons, value single target damage over AoE. Especially when right now there are better classes at doing AoE than Havoc. So I'd rather be stronger on single target than lack in single target and have slightly more AoE. But this is an option that you can do. Blind Fury, when paired with Momentum in dungeons, can get a little bit awkward, but at the end of the day, once you play with it for a little bit, you'll get used to it. So again, this is more of a Mythic Plus oriented build or Cleave or AoE scenarios. But this is the build that I recommend everyone start getting used to playing, because this is, in my opinion, a really strong build for raid and should get you prepared for what you will accomplish in Castle Nathria.